Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Broken Not Broke interview, a series of interviews when we get insights from leaders of nonprofits supporting the financial challenges of families impacted by childhood cancer. My name is Adrián Franco. I am the executive director of the Guarini Institute at New Jersey City University. It's a pleasure to host this interview as part of our Broken Not Broke initiative that looks to facilitate information for parents, caregivers, social workers, and any other leader in the space of childhood cancer. It is a great pleasure today to interview the CEO and founder of the organization Compass to Care, an organization based in Chicago that has been doing an outstanding job supporting families in one particular topic that we'll discuss in a second. Michelle Ernsdorff-May has a very inspiring story. She's a survivor of childhood cancer, and besides that, has a very successful career as an executive, but also has been recognized as a leader in the nonprofit world in many initiatives, in particular in this one. We'll talk more about what Compass to Care does and how you can support this organization, as well as ask for support from them, financial support from them in a second. So besides that, welcome, Michelle. Thank you so much for being here with us. And my first question to you is a very basic one, but I think it's very important to raise awareness. Like, why do childhood cancer has this significant effect on the household finances of families?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think it's a myriad of things. First and foremost, when a child is diagnosed with cancer, often parents end up having to reduce their household income as a result of parents either having to take time off work and or leaving their job. So if you and I were to be diagnosed with cancer, we would be able to take medical leave from our careers. And usually that's a long-term paid leave. But for a parent who has a child with cancer, the only reprieve that they have is FMLA, so the Family Medical Leave Act. And in that, it's an unpaid position, or it's unpaid, and parents can take 6 weeks of leave, and their job actually has to hold their position for those 6 weeks. But often, as you know, a childhood cancer journey is way longer than 6 weeks. And if you have a child who's going through this unfortunate reality, going back to work full time is often not an option for parents. And so there's a drastic reduction in their household income as a result. There's also so many out-of-pocket expenses that parents end up facing, not only from paying for deductibles and all of those things with regard to their medical care, but also things like transportation, getting to and from treatments, and finding people to care for other children while they are in the hospital with their own children. So it can be a really slippery slope for even a financially stable family before their child is diagnosed with cancer, to all of a sudden find themselves where they are, yeah, facing some financial insecurity.
Thank you for sharing that. Tell me about the long-term implications of this. You mentioned the journey that is usually more than 6 weeks. I will say 100% of the times it's more than 6 weeks, but it can take years for some families. Um, have you seen in your constituents, in the people that you support, these long-term effects in terms of mobility, economic and social mobility?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. So we've have had children who've been in treatment for over 10 years. And often, parents will say the community can often come and wrap their arms around these families during that time. And sometimes you'll see fundraisers being held to help support these families. But when it becomes a situation where this child is in this ongoing treatment, it becomes yeah, sort of weaved into the fabric of the community, and people stop realizing how challenging it becomes further and further out. Resources are depleted over time, and the longer you're in treatment, the more a family's resources are depleted, including resources from the community. But we also see, running out of PTO and, not being able to yeah, lean on some of those other things that are coming about. In addition to the charitable world, parents, can lean on some organizations, and usually there's a cap with the support that people can offer. And so trying to just run through all of these different things can have just this terrible implication on families and um, yeah, leave them really distraught financially for years even beyond their child's diagnosis.
What can you tell us about the effect on other members of the family, besides the diagnosed child?
It is heartbreaking, the entire journey for the entire family. With the parents, of course, nobody wants to see their child go through something so heartbreaking. And I am certain 100% of parents would trade places with their child in a heartbeat. But we also have siblings who can often be left behind and feel like they they're like the lost child in this. I had one parent that was telling me, their child was on this journey and they were coming north toward the end. And she said, I know my other child, I'm actually going to cry thinking about it, is at home suffering, but I need to be here in the hospital with this child because if they were to pass, I have to be here. And I feel like I can take care of that other child later. And, you know, while that makes sense to every parent, that child at home feels that. I've had parents tell me like their child just wanted to be in the hospital bed pushing the remote control buttons and the buttons on the bed because they just felt like they were not, you know, being left out of, from a child's eyes feels like something that is special, right? Even though there's so many terrible things, obviously, but these are children that are on this journey with their siblings, and it can be a heartbreaker for everybody.
Well, thanks for that story, for sharing. I'm sure that many families, many parents, and many siblings will relate to that situation. What we have also observed is the financial impact that will have on those siblings. Many college funds or even small luxuries that for a kid, like a toy, a bicycle, etc., had to put on hold because their siblings are going through treatment. Um, I love to hear now about Compass to Care, and I'm a big fan of your organization. Please tell us the inspiration behind it, how you came with the idea, and how it's supporting families.
So yes, so as you mentioned earlier, I am a childhood cancer survivor. I was diagnosed with kidney cancer, so a Wilms tumor, when I was 14 months old. And I'm from a town in Iowa where there isn't an oncologist that cares for children with cancer. Back then, as well as now, there's isn't an oncologist. So immediately upon being diagnosed, I was sent to the Mayo Clinic, which is about 3 hours away from my parents' home. And so I went up there and I had uh, my kidney removed. I went through radiation therapy, and then I went through a year and a half of chemotherapy. And so that, as you can imagine, took a toll on our family in so many ways. but my parents always talked about the financial implication that it had on them. My dad was the sole breadwinner of the family. When I was in the hospital having my nephrectomy, my mom found out that she was pregnant again. So that would have been her fourth child. And it, yeah, it was really tough times for my parents. My dad always told a story about how he didn't have enough money when I was unexpectedly hospitalized to get home because my mom needed to keep the car. And so he ended up hitchhiking back home. And luckily, somebody safe picked him up and got him back so that he could get back to work. Because if he wasn't working, he was going to either lose his job, and or all of our financial security in our family. So I entered my career in the healthcare field, and I most recently was a VP of marketing for a pharmaceutical company. And it was in the oncology space, and I realized that my parents were not alone in facing the challenges of funding their transportation to and from treatment, and that when your child is going through this extraordinarily challenging journey, a parent should not have to even think about taking the first steps of a 200-mile walk home so that they can get back there for to go to work. And so I end up leaving the corporate world to start Compass to Care. And our focus has always been to fund transportation between the home and the hospital for parents who are facing some financial insecurity while their child is going through cancer treatment. So we initially, you have to start someplace. We initially started as an organization that was really focused on funding rural families or far families who are from a more distant suburb to get their child to treatment. And so we started paying for gasoline and parking for those families. We then, from the company that I came from, most recently, are a manufacturer in the proton therapy space. And they, even still, proton therapy is often a journey that families have to make to access. And so they end up funding us to provide support for families to actually fly to and from treatments. And so, yeah, we embarked on just a different aspect of the childhood cancer journey in getting families to specialized treatment by paying for flights, ground transportation, and lodging. And then during COVID, I was, so in the city of Chicago, people from low income households were having a hard time getting to locations where they could get 2 COVID shots. And so Uber actually provided $1 million grant for these people to be able to get to those 2 shots. And I realized, wow, if people cannot get to 2 COVID shots, then urban families probably are having similar struggles in getting their children to cancer treatment, which is over and over and over again, not just two times. And so we end up developing a program with an organization called Kaizen Health, where we actually fund Uber and Lyft transportation for parents who do not have access to a vehicle to get their children to treatment. So we have, we started out really looking at Iowa and Illinois families because those are my 2 homes. But the word quickly spread, and we started getting calls from all across the country because it is a challenge that far too many families are facing. And so, yeah, we have become a national provider and a top national provider for transportation for children who are on the cancer journey that need transportation support to reach their treatment.
Well, a story, again, very inspirational, coming from your own family, but also I will notice great strategic planning, great the building blocks that you mentioned make so much sense. As I see many families going through this. The rural aspect is um, very obvious when you see a map of treatment centers, especially some specialized, as you say, protons or neutrons radiation. There's not a lot of places that have it. And then the aspect of flights. But as you said, even in urban centers, you hear constantly people, taking the bus to chemo, subway in cities that have that means of transportation. This is not ideal, as anyone who knows how the treatments have effects to have a child in public transportation, not for other reason, but because the body, has so many uh, um, uh, side effects and symptoms.
Yes. Yeah, it's interesting. We had a request from New York City, a very robust transportation system. A family was living in transitional housing because they were having a lot of financial challenges. They had a child going through treatments, and then they had a 1-year-old. And you still have to be able to pay for a bus. You still have to be able to pay for the subway, which they couldn't. And so the social worker had found them an option to get them to treatment, but it was going to cost $3 for the family that they could not afford. And so the mom was walking the two children, and the one child was actually terminal, to treatment. And they called us and said, is there a way that you can help them? And we said, absolutely. And again, the childhood cancer journey is just so heartbreaking, but when you are facing financial challenges at the same time, it is it is even more devastating. But a parent does not want to give up on any time that they possibly have with their child, even if that means getting out on the streets of New York City and walking to the hospital for their child's care. And yeah, and I mean it's across the board, like you said, flights. It shouldn't just be wealthy children that can get flights to get to specialized treatment that could save their child's life. All the way down to we can't afford a bus, fare for our myself and my two children to get to the cancer treatment. And everything in between, we try to be a resource for those families that can ensure that their child is not going to miss treatment, because missing treatment has an impact on survival. And also helping a parent know that they have given everything that they possibly could to be able to save their child's life, you know, when in case this journey does end. They don't want to feel like there was something available that I couldn't access because I couldn't afford to get there. And so we want to be certain to be a resource for all of those families during just these detrimental times.
And I believe you have, just looking at the numbers in your website, and I encourage everyone to go and look at compass2care.org to see the impact that Michelle and her team are having in so many families is again outstanding, and every family, I'm sure, will always remember that support. I think it's a good moment to turn to another question, Michelle, because you pointed out something that I believe every family feels, and that's um, you 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 want to do everything you can, uh, the most impossible things even, to make sure uh, your child survives this very heartbreaking journey.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, either organizations, nonprofit organizations like yours, or even large associations or hospitals, by themselves, they cannot do what we would wish to. So the question is, what will be your recommendation, your suggestions, your thoughts, even in major changes at the policy level, at a systemic level, at even a structural level, that will make a difference for these families in terms of of financial matters in childhood cancer?
So you may not know, but Medicaid has non-emergency medical transportation that families can access. The unfortunate thing is doesn't work. And that is, there's a lot of different things. Again, for like, let's talk about a rural family. So sometimes these rural families end up having to get on transportation with other people, which means the journey ends up being so much longer. You also can only bring one child with you. So if you have other children, they cannot join the ride. And then if anybody who's ever been through this knows that there's so many unknowns. And so the unknown of like, oh, I need transportation right now, those kinds of things don't work. They also have a funding arm of their transportation where they will help families pay for transportation. And so last year we said, okay, let's try to figure this out. Let's see what we can do to, because if we can tap into for our Medicaid patients some of the funding that is available, then we can utilize our resources for non-Medicaid families. And it turned into more work than it has to start someplace else besides our organization. We tried to get funding for a family, and they end up putting the family on the state payroll. And because I said, oh, well, we're going to reimburse them money. And as a result of reimbursing money, we're going to have to turn around and put them on our payroll, which seems obscene. I mean, just ridiculous. This family had zero income at the time. She said, we do not even file taxes. And I'm fearful this is going to then take away from my Medicaid support that I'm getting for everything else. And I mean, that's just one of the stories of like how backward the system is. While you think, wow, there's funding available out there, it is so hard to access. It took us 3 months to even get that family from the application, which my program manager sat down and did with the family. 2 hours it took to complete the application, to the end point of we're going to add you to our payroll and your reimbursement now becomes income for your family. So I think there's opportunity to perhaps fix that system, but that is going to take a lot of work. I also feel like there is opportunity within the insurance companies to start to cover transportation and fully cover childhood cancer treatments, whether as it's specialized treatments, experimental treatments, and capping the out-of-pocket expenses that families are facing. We have so many families that come to us, hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt as a result of their child's cancer journey. And there's definitely ways that the insurance companies can support these families during these times. Also, if there could be a paid FMLA for parents, their child's going through a cancer treatment, or any other kind of, detrimental treatment. Can you hear my dog barking?
That's okay.
And I'm going to close the door.
So we're going to take a moment here just for audio, but
Sorry about that.
that's okay.
Yeah, so paid FMLA, giving parents the opportunity to have some kind of reimbursement from their work to make sure that they are not, going from perhaps two incomes to one income to none, which has just this detrimental financial implication that at the end of the day can affect a child's survival. If a parent cannot afford these out-of-pocket expenses that come with their child's cancer journey, their child is not going to survive. And we've seen it over and over again where a parent cannot afford to get their child to treatment. And without resources like Compass to Care, and we're just, a small fraction of the families that we can support, a small fraction of the families that need help. And so there just has to be some larger changes within the healthcare system to be able to really move the needle and ensure that all children have access to the care that they need so that their lives can be spared.
I completely agree. I think there's so many opportunities at policy, systemic, industry level to make a difference in the life of so many families that are going through this heartbreaking situation that is most of the time devastating for um, for the financial stability of a home. So thank you for sharing your thoughts on that. Anything else you want to share with us, Michelle?
I just really appreciate the work that you're doing in helping families to find the resources that they need. There are some hospitals are just packed with social workers that hold the hands of children, and other hospitals do not have as deep of pockets to be able to fund, robust social work departments. And sometimes families are not led to where it is that they can find the support that they need. And so there's so many organizations out there doing great work for families, and transportation, while it has an immediate impact on a family, and their ability to get a child to treatment, there's so many other needs that these families have. And having a place where they can turn to find those resources, I think, is going to be exceptional for them. And, at the end of the day, we're all trying to provide a little bit of relief and a little bit of hope for these families. So thank you for that.
Well, we appreciate your comments, but we appreciate more that you spend this time with us, sharing your insights, sharing your own personal story, and as well as the outstanding uh, initiatives and jobs and programs that Compass to Care have, and now at the national level, in so many ways, helping families that need the support the most. So to everyone, please visit compasstocare.org. You will find all the information there about this organization. If you are looking for support, there is a very easy uh, um, process to apply for. But more important, if you can donate, please do that. Please support this organization. It's very important. And also find us in brokenNotbroke.org, a portal that facilitates information about more than 400 organizations nationwide that support families impacted by childhood cancer, in particular in financial matters. We do have a newsletter every month. You can subscribe to that. We have a helpline that you can call in case that you would like support with navigating the portal. And now we have our interviews that you can find in our channel in YouTube, the Broken Not Broke interview. Google it, you can find it right away. As well, in the website, there is a tab for interviews. Well, thank you so much to our guest, Michelle Ernsdorff-May, to everyone at Compass to Care, and to our team here at NJCU at the Guarini Institute. We'll see you next time for the next edition of the Broken Not Broke interview. Thank you.
Thank you.